to you. This is the inaugural edition of the Cottage Country Insider podcast. It is February 26th. It's quite warm here. How is it up in Magnetawan this morning?
Gorgeous day. Sunny, beautiful. Yeah. We're going snowshoeing right after this.
That's what we're going to try to go and do a walk. Kim's skiing right now. She wanted to go skiing before the snow started to get wet and sticky. So they headed out about 9 o'clock. So
went from minus 21 it went from minus 21 to minus 3. It's crazy.
Welcome to this winter. It's kind of atypical. So I'm just going to introduce my name is Jim Marshall. If you haven't met me, I'm a broker with Remax, Parry Sound-Muskoka Realty Limited. I live, work in the Parry Sound area, 2 hours north of Toronto, straight up Highway 400 for those that are geographically challenged. John, it works out of East Parry Sound, Almaguin area for the same office. John and I, how long have we known each other? Long time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jim was my mentor when I first got into the business.
Well, but even before that, we knew each other for a long time. So John and I have been buddies for a long time, and we talk actually 2-3 times a week throughout the year.
Absolutely.
We're both tech nerds.
Yes, for sure.
We both have technology. We both have Teslas. Yeah, and so we always throwing back and forth with each other, bantering. What's the market doing? What's working for you? What's not working? And so describe kind of the market that you work in up in Almaguin, John.
Sure. Well, I cover, like Jim said, like the east side of the district more. So sort of Manitowoc east towards Algonquin Park. Sue and I actually have a cottage by Kearney, so we do a fair bit down there too. And I go as far south as Cashy Lake. That's the south end of my range down there. So it's a pretty big area for sure. Kind of like, I don't know what the actual square kilometers will be, but it's a lot of driving. Good thing we drive those Teslas.
Well, I calculated out one time the Parry Sound district is a comparable size to some of those little city states, but actually countries in Europe, the Liechtensteins, the Luxembourg, and things like that. So just it's a huge area, and my area kind of overlaps St. John's a little bit to the east, Manitowoc and Whitestone, and that, and we kind of do the opposite around here, where we go up towards Britt and the French River, and we go down south towards Port Severn, not really to there, but down towards the lakes down like Go Home Lake and 6 Mile, and that we'll do, and the points in between. So between the two of us, we've pretty well got you covered for most of the Muskoka Parry Sound area.
How many miles do you think, Jim? I'm just curious.
Oh, kilometers? Well, it's less than it used to be. It used to be about 40 to 50,000 kilometers. But that's when I had Kitchen University and things like that too. Now it's coming in around 30, 32. And I think that's partly because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. We're driving less. There's less a show. Having people up on a Saturday and say, let's go look at 4 cottages, because there aren't 4 cottages. You're coming and looking at one. So it is made, my driving and the wear and tear on the vehicle a little bit easier. But what is happening right now actually with the market up in the Almaguin area? Is there anything going on? It is February after all.
Yeah, I just ran the numbers a few minutes ago, and it's really slow because there's just nothing to buy. So if we pull in from, say, Whitestone area to Brooks Falls, Magnetawan, and Sunridge, there's only been 32 sales of everything, lots, cottages, homes, since November.
Wow.
In a normal year, that would be, I think we average 126 pre-pandemic. That's a big drop, but there's just nothing for folks to buy.
So you're looking at about a quarter of the inventory.
Exactly.
More or less.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's
wow.
Really tough for folks looking, especially year-round homes. There's only 9 for sale in our area right now. There should be 30 or 40 at least, and there's 9 homes, year-round homes for sale.
Yeah,
that's tough sledding.
And we're saying the same thing over here. Like there's been stretches where the town of Parry Sound itself has had no single-family homes for sale. They have condos, but no
Yeah.
single family homes at all.
Yeah.
And, right now for waterfront cottages, year-round access, winterized, I can't think of any.
Yeah. No.
There might be, but we just sold one. We had up on Harris Lake, well, conditionally sold one, and it was the only one. So of course we're getting all the calls on it,
Right.
even in February. And we were getting at one point, it took us a little over 3 weeks to get an accepted offer on it. We were
Yeah.
getting on average 5 to 8 showings a weekend
Mm.
on it.
Oh, wow.
So, and then you're always working around weather and things as well, and people running late because there's snow squalls and things. So it was interesting. It was a good bellwether kind of to see what give us a bit of a precursor of what the market's going to be like this spring. So what kind of the segue into that? Do you think things are going to improve?
Well, at this end of the district, I think inventory is still going to be low. Usually by now, between you and I, we have quite a list of cottages for the spring, and we have some between the two of us, but a fraction of what we normally have. So I think it's going to be really tough for people looking. The one that I
Yeah.
sold last week on Horn Lake, if that's any indication, that's a good lake. And the first person through bought it cash because they've been looking for months and couldn't find anything. Yep,
Yeah.
we want it cash, done. And there's nothing else to find. So yeah, same out your way.
Same here. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's just, we're lining people up, picking up, probably a buyer a day, and they're all kind of looking at the same type of thing as you're saying, year-round, winterized, budgets up to exceeding $3 million. These
Yeah,
are solid people. These are people that are not really affected by, the higher interest rates, or not as exposed to things like that.
yeah,
And these are people probably our age-ish,
yeah,
looking to get out part-time or full-time out of the city and buy a waterfront property. And we just don't have the stuff. We certainly hope the inventory levels come up. We've got about 4 places that we're going to be looking at putting on the market in the springtime for waterfront. A
yeah,
couple lots. That's it.
yeah,
So it's going to be, and I was talking to somebody the other day, and talking about inventory levels, and they said, well, what did it used to be like? And I go back a long time, and I said, I used to carry 35, 40 listings at some point. Is that, how did you do that? It's like, well, a lot of work, but
yeah.
we're not doing that anymore.
I remember one spring I had 21 cottages. And not that many, 21, that was a lot at the same time, listed the same week. And I have 4 for this spring. What? It's crazy.
Well, the thing, even to put the listings together, I'm not sure if the public really realizes how much work, but if I do a listing, if I start in the morning on a listing, of course just say somebody drops by your office. It's
Yeah,
a full day just to get all the information together. And then you got to schedule video, you got to schedule photos and that.
yeah,
It takes days to put these things up for sale, to prepare the copy, figure out the advertising.
yeah.
It's not like it
I,
was years ago. Take a couple Polaroid shots and like,
it's a bit of a orchestration now to get things going. And it's good though, because the listings are better than they were a decade ago. Far more information, far better.
oh God,
Well,
oh yeah.
sometimes far better photography, depending on where you look. But
For
there's
the most part,
definitely,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I agree. I think we got much better information than we did. It would be hard. It'd be hard to sometimes get property measurements or inside measurements from people
yeah.
back years ago. So what tips do you have if you've got buyers that are looking to buy in your area that you work? What are you telling them? What kind of tips do you have?
Well, because inventory is so low, if they find something that kind of ticks off the boxes, don't assume that if they wait another week or month, there's going to be another 10 to compare it to. Like if in the price range they want, the area that they want, and it works for them, I don't think they should wait, because who knows if something's going to come up even this entire season. I
Yeah.
I think if they think it's right, they should move on it. Don't be pushy with folks, but I think you have to be honest with them too, and say, I don't know if you're going to find something else if you're going to try to wait and see what the market does. That's a gamble.
So you're getting people that want to be on a specific, like, say, I don't know, let's just say Almaguin, for
Yeah,
example, and you're just keeping them kind of at the top of the Rolodex as things come up. You're emailing properties as they come up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and say, time to drive. It's not that panic that it was during the pandemic where people were, you know, going crazy, with multiple offers on almost everything, but they're still selling. If they're priced right, they're selling quite fast still. I think there's still a lot of buyers. They're more savvy than they would have been, and certainly using their heads more, hopefully. But I think, if it's right, I don't think there's not going to be a lot from what I've seen.
No, what about for sellers? What strategies are you using now? Like you said you had this place on Horn Lake. Are you using different strategies than you did a year or 2 years ago?
Absolutely, because the feeding frenzy is over. So I think it's super important that they price it right in the pocket, realistically, with what the market is now, as opposed to what it was a year and a half ago. And if they talk to multiple agents, they're going to get a huge range on prices. And I think the wise seller asks for the data, the current data for that area, not for all of Parry Sound or all of Muskoka or all of wherever. That you need to know specific lakes, specific towns, and what the market's doing there, because there's a big difference. If Manitowoc is not going to get the same as Lake Joseph, but it's going to get a lot more than Wally Lake. And we've run into that with people that might not know the area as well, and they just get
Yeah.
broad data points, and then they price it way too high, and it sits on the market, and then it's the dreaded price reduction, which everybody can see now. It's not hidden. Everybody can find out what the prices have been doing, and if it's a vicious slide, once you start lowering it, people think they've got you, so you need to price it in the pocket.
What we were doing in the fall for cottages is we weren't going back. We're going back to like midsummer. I was looking at cottages in October. I was
Yeah,
going back 3 months, and they're saying, "Well, what about this one that sold in April?" I went, "No, can't use that because it sold 7 offers and went over what it was worth. Maybe it was
yes,
worth at a time, but I would argue that it wasn't.
right.
And so this spring's going to be interesting because the data set we're going to be using, because there hasn't been anything for sale.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get 5 comparables of properties. Is we're going to have to go back kind of into the last half of 2022 and use
Mm-hmm.
those sales to kind of nudge out the values for this year, and assuming that the market's going to be about the same as it was the last half of 2022, which I think is a pretty safe assumption. I don't think there's going to be a huge change in it.
And take off the outliers on both sides. Like, you
Well,
always
good
get
point.
the occasional, you know, bizarre sale both ways, way too high, way overpaid, or a deal for some unknown reason. So I don't think the raw data, people that just look at the raw data on their computer don't get the whole story. You kind of have to know the area.
You have to be able to interpret the data. Yeah, absolutely. So with
Sure.
the pandemic, I wouldn't say it's over, but it's certainly it seems to be winding down. It's certainly the effect, how it's changed our lives since March 2020. It's almost 3 years. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
What are the kind of the changes that you think are not going to go away? I've been asked this, and
Yeah.
it's a really good thought kind of
Yes.
experiment. You're kind of going,
Mm.
some of the things now that we're doing, we weren't doing in 2019, and
Hmm.
we're doing them more often than not.
Yeah. I think from what I've seen from my clients, a huge majority for waterfront purchases, they want to retire up here eventually. So that's always been a thing, but I think it sort of accelerated with the pandemic. They want to move to the north, so they're buying cottages that are either year-round or they can convert to year-round. And a huge game changer has actually been Starlink, because there was a lot of areas, at least on our side of the district, where you could not get good internet. It was horrific. It was akin to dial-up. It was brutal. We couldn't do what we're doing now, which is on Starlink, by the way.
So there's a little bit of lag at some point. Get in touch with Elon Musk on Twitter and complain.
Yeah, I'll call him when we're done. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and that was the number one question we're being asked, especially early in the pandemic, is what do we do for internet? I can get fiber at that remote access cottage on that island in the middle of that lake next to Algonquin Park, can't I? And it's like wow.
Oh yeah.
It's like
even where our cabin is, which is by Algonquin Park. I mean, the download and upload speeds have completely changed it. Our neighbor 2 up works for the provincial government and has to do regular Skype meetings, and she can do it without any issue whatsoever now. And before, she actually had an apartment in Barrie that she rented as well for during the week. So it's completely changed things. Yeah.
But it's, I think the thing that's going to be the lingering effect, I think one of the things is going to be the low inventory levels. I think that's going to be the new norm. People aren't selling because they haven't got a place to go to. You need a house to live in. You need, and cottages. We're finding a lot more cottages being passed along. I've been called 3 times this week from people. We don't do appraisals. I refer it off to other people. We've got an appraiser in our office, for example, and they're passing their cottage down to their kids. So we need to establish a value for Canada revenue. And and I talked to the one person about it and said, these are normally properties that would come to the market, and now they're not. And they said, yeah. 20 years ago we would have sold this. I'm like, my point, exactly. So for the cottage stuff, I just think that's going to be one of the lingering things. No huge inventories unless the economy really bites, the dirt, and people start selling because they can't afford them anymore. But we're not seeing that right now.
And I think people, once they're out of the market, once a family sells the cottage, the odds for the average person being able to afford to get back into the market are so low that I think people are hanging on to them because they figure, hey, if we ever sell it, that's it. We're out of cottaging. And it's sad, but it's true.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a cottage in Almaguin down through Muskoka, what are kind of the lakes that are the most popular? Maybe what some of the lakes that are, not as well known, but have, that offer really good value to buyers?
Yeah. Horn Lake, which is the one I grew up on, so I'm biased. But it's after Amick Lake and Lake Sissy, but it's the most popular, it's the most sought after lake. It's not that large, but it's extremely clean. And the top third of it is all Crown land. It's a very eco-friendly set of folks that are on that cottage, which is spectacular. A great cottaging association. So and there's a lot of restrictions to anything that's done on the lake, from the municipal end to the provincial end, because it's such a significant lake. That's a pretty cool lake. The prices reflect it to a point, so there's no deal on that lake, but it's sort of under the radar lake that a lot of people will not have heard of, that are not in the know.
Yeah, well, this is good, because that's something we get asked all the time.
Yeah.
What are kind of the lakes that are, kind of slip under the radar? Everybody knows Lake Joe and Lake Rothlo and Georgian Bay and things like that, but not many people know of some of these other nice little lakes. And the only problem is sometimes the availability. Like, we've got a lake called Wawashkesh. You know it because you sold stuff. I've sold stuff up there. Beautiful lake. It's the largest lake in our area, but there's only 120 properties on it. And
Yeah.
half of them are water, or over half are water access. So trying to get a road access one on Wabash is difficult. It could take a year or so to find something.
Oh yeah, we paddled it last year. I had never been on it. I'd sold on it, but I never spent time on the water. Unbelievably beautiful, gorgeous, and so much
Yeah.
crown land. You know, Magnetawan River at the north end. It's just, it's incredible. But like you said, so few places come up for sale.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is kind of always the thing that we're always struggling with. And that's been, since I started this business, it's always
Yeah.
a struggle, trying to find inventory. It's just getting tougher. So
Mhm.
we're both local agents. I've been doing this, will be 38 years in May, believe it or not. You've been, how many years now? About 12, 13?
12 or maybe 14 now. I don't know. It's all a blur.
Okay. It's all a
Yeah.
blur. Yeah. No, it's like,
Yeah.
it's hard to believe it's 2023. So I think it was somewhere around 2009, 2010 when you got in the business. But
Yeah.
what's and one of the things we noticed with the pandemic is we had people driving from all over the place
I know. It's
to
great.
show cottage properties. And,
Yeah.
give your elevator pitch why you should use a local agent. I know it's something we talk about all the time. You could go on for hours. Why? But try to keep it
Yeah.
down to a minute or two, just to share with people.
Yeah. Well, we've touched on it a few times. The biggest thing, not to, you know, put people down, but you need to know what you're selling and you need to know the area. And they think that maybe if they Google it or they look at the data sets that they can become an expert in a certain area or a certain lake, but you can't, because even within lakes, there's, good areas and not so good areas on certain lakes, or rules can be different on different sides of lakes. And what I found was the pricing to be spastic. Some tremendously underpriced them, some really overpriced them because they didn't know the lake. You need to know what you're selling. And it's tough if you're sitting at a computer in Mississauga and you've never been on Wabash Cash to price it. Uncle Joe wants me to list their place. It would be like you or I trying to sell a condo in Hamilton. I have no clue. Like I could look at the data sets. I have no clue. I haven't got the foggiest notion about that kind of stuff. And it would be doing my clients a disservice to try to fumble my way through it. I mean, I could lose them tens of thousands of dollars, or alternatively, they might never sell because I priced it wrong, or I don't know that there's, in this area, there could be a huge development coming up. I ran into that twice this year where
Yeah.
uh, we knew about it because we were sort of, abreast of what's going on. And there's some large developments going in down Carney Way, for instance. So people think that they're buying this quiet little lake.
Yeah.
Little do they know that in the next 5 years, it is not going to look the same. And you just can't get that by sitting at a desk in Mississauga. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, we've talked about the buyers that we've dealt with as sellers later on that have bought cottages in our area, intending them to use them as short-term rentals. And you cannot, and this is, I've talked to other people about this recently. We've actually put a brochure together just to kind of try to parse it out a little bit for people. You can't do short-term rentals in many of the municipalities around here. They will prosecute you. And they have the right to do it. It's gone to court, it's gone to appeal. They have the
That's
right
right.
to do it. And whether you agree with it or not, it's irrelevant. So we have people that come in and say, we want to short-term rent it half the summer. It's like, okay, that's fine. We're not going to do it in this township, or this township. Maybe this township,
Yeah.
probably this township. And, and it's a huge issue. But, you're going to get little pieces of that looking at Google News or whatever and finding this stuff out. You'll find everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's something I preach still and blue in my face. Well, what about the way that we market properties? Like, how is it different now, for example, than when, say, you started in the business?
Oh, so different. The DDF has made a big difference. That's the data distribution facility. So Jim is really up on that. I think he was one of the founding people on that. But it's
We
a
did it.
great
Yep.
tool. Great tool. Not everybody does it, but basically the Coles Notes version is if we put a listing up, it then populates on sites, all over Ontario and the country for that matter, on some levels, and it just increases your exposure exponentially. I don't know everybody doesn't do it, because it's just
Yeah.
a spectacular way of getting the properties out there for people.
Yeah, and if you're interviewing agents and they haven't got it, we tell prospective sellers that they don't have an online marketing plan.
Yeah.
Really? What are you going to put in the newspaper? Like
Yeah.
seriously? This is 2023. Yeah, yeah. So
And
online marketing
also,
is a huge part of our business.
and we have our websites are kind of unique, not totally, but we have individual lakes on our. So if somebody's interested in Lake Manitowoc, they can look up the individual properties just on that. It makes it so much more efficient than it used to be, where you scrolled for hours or to try to find what you were looking for. It's really made it efficient.
Yeah. Well, it's it's trying to get the information out to buyers out there and sellers is always, was always a struggle, but now it's relatively easy with websites and blogs and things like that, social media, Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah.
We certainly are, and you are in all those fields as well. So if I'm somebody in Toronto and I'm looking to have a quiet country experience, I have to say, John lives in this absolute beautiful log home on a farm outside of Magnetawan. It's about as rural as you can get. His internet is Starlink. He's living the life. But what's the advantage of your area, say, over other areas that people might be looking at? Peterborough area, Grey Bruce. What's the advantage of Almaguin and the Magnetawan area?
Well, Magnetawan specifically has a really tight knit community. Like the social groups are strong. You know, I've lived in other areas, and this rural Almaguin is very grassrootsy. Great farmers markets. A lot of places have these things too, but it seems to be much tighter, and the sense of community is extremely strong here. And the water quality is great because most people that come this neck of the woods, they want to spend time on the water too. And we've got, public access to almost all of the lakes that's free. And our water quality is quite good. Most of our water comes from Algonquin Park through the Magnetawan River system. So we haven't got, some of the, say, algae bloom problems. We have some, all lakes have some, but maybe not as prevalent in other areas as well. It's kind of a low-key neck of the woods, low-key area.
But it's still close to shopping and close to hospitals.
Absolutely.
The amenities
you want
that
Huntsville? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're 30 minutes from Huntsville. We're 45 minutes from Parry Sound. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. You're close to the shopping and the good restaurants, but not the crowds, and you don't want them.
Yep. No, well, that's kind of self-defeating, isn't it?
Exactly.
You don't want to urban. I can't see a day and age where we see Magnetawan become urbanized. So it's always going to stay a quaint small town. So good. Well, thank you very much for coming in on our inaugural podcast on here. I'm going to try to be doing these things about every 7 to 10 days. We have some vacation time coming up in March. So obviously I'm not going to be doing it then, but we're going to try to keep these things regular. We've got lots of guests that we're going to be bringing in, other real estate people, business professionals, maybe some municipal people. We're communicating with people right now, trying to come up with a bit of an itinerary going forward. So check us out. If you can subscribe to us through YouTube, you can certainly do that, or you can keep an eye on the website here. John, thank you very much for coming in today through Starlink. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you this week. Have a good day. Take care.
It's been fun. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.